Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jeffrey Moss from Parker Dewey. Really a pleasure to be here today. And huge thank you, by the way, to the University of Texas at Arlington Lockheed Martin Career Development Center and to the entire team there for giving us this opportunity. It's been a true pleasure working with David and the rest of the folks on the team there. What an amazing program. And we love seeing this type of innovation from schools, especially given and during such a difficult, unusual season that we're all in year 2 of COVID. So I'm Jeffrey, I'm the founder of Parker Dewey, started the organization about 6 years ago. What we'll be talking about today is a little bit about the University of Texas Arlington micro internship program and how this can support you. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to use your chat. We'll try to answer them during the presentation. My colleague, Kristen Schrader, is also on and can try to answer those in the chat if I miss them, since I have a hard enough time walking and chewing gum as it is. So let's kick this off. So normally if we were together, I'd ask by a show of hands, how many of you have heard of micro internships? Since we are not together, I will assume no one has, and I apologize if this covers a tread path. Micro internships, when we pioneered them 6 years ago, we defined as short-term paid professional projects completed by college students or recent graduates on behalf of busy professionals. And just to unpack that a bit, short-term meaning these are projects that would take a college student or recent grad typically anywhere from 10 to 40 hours to complete. Again, there's no magic to that. But again, if it's a project that's going to take 120 hours over 2 months, or it's a project that you just need someone for an hour, probably just not the best fit. They're also professional. And the best way to think about these are projects that you have on your own plate that just not enough hours in a day for, or not the best use of your time. We call them the we shoulds and the I shouldn'ts. We should go update our social media calendar or update our social media posting to make sure we're engaging the students at University of Texas effectively this fall. Or we should go identify who are the key clubs and organizations at the University of Texas that we want to be talking to prior to our information sessions. Or I shouldn't, I'm in marketing and I shouldn't be the one doing a first draft of the article, or in sales, crunching a conference list. Every professional has those we should and I shouldn't projects. Micro internships help those busy professionals get on-demand, immediate support from highly motivated college students. And while those projects may not be the best use of time for people with 5, 10, 20 years of experience, for college students, they provide really valuable, insightful opportunities to demonstrate skills, learn about different companies and industries, build valuable relationships, enhance their resumes, and also make a couple of bucks. So again, these projects are not drive an Uber or deliver my food. These are real professional projects where students can, again, make some money, but more importantly, support their career development and help them launch their career and find the right summer internship and full-time role. These micro internships are applicable across all different departments. Again, we've seen them used in sales, marketing, HR, finance, legal, across every industry. So again, whether you're in financial services or publishing or marketing and advertising or education or healthcare, we've seen these used across every industry, and they also take place year-round. So they're not limited to just the summer or winter break. What we find is students, even if they have a full course load, they're able to work on these projects in between classes or nights and weekends, typically done remote. Again, you can request on-site, but we strongly suggest remote. And by the way, remote is not something new for us. It's not some newfangled COVID thing, but as we've seen over the past 6 years, most of these projects, again, can be done from someone's dorm room or apartment and don't require them to be in the office. What that means for the campus recruiting folks on the call is it increases your catchment area. Here's a great way to engage a University of Texas student, even if your organization happens to be located in Chicago. Or for folks who are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, here's a way to engage someone who's from Dallas and wants to return home upon graduation, but may have made a mistake and gone to school in Boston or Philadelphia or California. Just kidding about that part, but here's a great way to bring them back home and show them what opportunities are available should they want to return to the Big D upon graduation. We also get the question a lot about the types of projects, and specifically, we're in financial services, we can't share sensitive info with the students, or we're in healthcare and we can't share anything HIPAA. These are projects that don't require access to anything sensitive. They don't require students to have access to your systems. They tend to be using very, very public-facing information. So again, an investment bank isn't going to provide information with social security numbers or account numbers. Not a good project. We would not suggest it. Or a healthcare company isn't going to provide a project where you're asking a student to access its IT system. These are all projects that students can do on their own on a standalone basis, again, without accessing anything sensitive. That said, all of the students are under NDA, which provides further protection. And in 6 years of doing this, there have been no issues. One other thing worth noting is this does not replace your summer internship program. So sometimes we'll hear from companies, nah, our summer internships program's great. We don't need this, we're fine. Awesome. This doesn't replace that. What this does is it provides help, again, those other 10 months of the year where the summer intern would be absolutely perfect to help. But what it also does is it helps companies build that pipeline for the summer interns. It helps them access students who aren't potentially aware of your company. Yeah, one of the things we've seen pre-COVID, and it's especially true right now with so many students zoomed out, they're only reading an email or going to an info session if they're already planning to apply to your company. So if you're recruiting from Pepsi and a student knows a Pepsi, they think about it as a soda company, but they're not thinking about a role there, they're not going to apply. They're not going to show up to your info session. They want to do interesting technology, not work for a soda company. Well, guess what? Pepsi has interesting technology opportunities. How do you engage them? How do you show them? Well, you give them opportunities to work on those real experiences. That's what they crave. Or maybe you haven't historically recruited at the University of Texas. Well, here's a great way to start to build your brand on campus and get to know those students and provide the students an opportunity to get to know you. And the reason this works is, again, not only is it supporting the campus recruiting teams, but again, it helps those busy professionals. They appreciate the opportunity to get that on-demand support on the projects. And so many of them also like the idea of giving back. So as a University of Texas alum, here's a great opportunity to support a student who goes to my alma mater. Maybe I'm not able to go to the football games. Maybe I'm not able to write the big check, but gosh, I have one of these projects. I'd love to give it to a Texas student as a way to support them. As we said, everyone has these project needs. We call them the we shoulds and I shouldn'ts, and that's the best way to think about this. And we have this neat little chart, again, you can link to it from the presentation, that sort of helps your hiring managers think about this. So when HR departments are introducing this to other departments, we strongly suggest it's not positioned as a campus recruiting tool. Because again, people know what they like, and some of them really enjoy it, but some people say, ooh, that sounds like work. I don't want to spend a day in interviews. I have the time to participate in more panels. What we suggest companies do and HR departments do is position it as a perk. You have so many of those we shoulds and I shouldn't projects. Here's a great way to get some of that support. So again, the hiring managers love this. And part of the reason they love it is it's easy. So we'll talk real quickly about how it works. In short, you post your project, you select who you want, the work gets done. And we'll walk through this in more detail in a second. Our role, so Parker Dewey's role in all of this, and part of the reason the University of Texas is working with us, is we handle everything behind the scenes to make it simple. And as we'll show you, we have a platform that makes it easy to post projects and an entire client success team that can help. We have a student access. So students might not be logging into Handshake or Simplicity every day. They might only be logging in during recruiting season, or freshmen and sophomores might not be logging in at all. Well, here's a way to access those students, because what we find is students are logging into the platform every day. And again, not a replacement for what you're doing with the traditional campus recruiting. Think about it as a complement. And then again, student onboarding and payroll. It's really important that when students are working on these micro internships, they're not your employees. They're not your interns. They're not your contractors or freelancers. You have no formal relationship with them. They are not, um, they are not uh, on your payroll. You're not filling out 1099s or W-2s. All of them are employees or contractors of Parker Dewey. What that does is it makes you really, really, really easy for you to offer these opportunities. In addition, one question that comes up all the time is what happens if a student does a micro internship and we decide we want to hire them for a full-time role or anything else, summer internship? Awesome. No temp to perm fees, no conversion. We are a mission-driven organization and we don't want to get in the way. So if you work with Jeff, the micro intern, and you decide he's amazing and you want to bring him in for a full-time role and put him through your interview process, et cetera, great. There's no like got you associated with it. So how do we do this? As I said, we made it really simple to post these projects. I think Kristen shared in the chat the link to this. We've actually defined 15 or so of the most common micro internships. Again, you're certainly not limited to those, but we tried to make it really, really easy. Again, we have an entire client success team and a number of other projects behind the scenes, but these are some of the ones we see most often. We need help writing an article or assisting in lead generation or updating job descriptions or creating a social media calendar for our presence at UT Arlington in the coming months. Well, here's a great way to, again, get some of that support. We suggest these MAV micros are posted 48 to 72 hours before you want the project to begin. So this isn't something you need to post now for someone you want in December, or if you have a project now, you didn't miss the boat because you didn't post it last June. These projects are posted again as you need them. Again, we suggest 48 to 72 hours. So we know we're going to a conference next week. We need help preparing some content. You could post that project today, pick someone tomorrow, have them working on it, and have it on your desk on Monday or Tuesday. They truly are that on demand. And again, all of these are pre-scoped and crafted. Once those projects are posted, students across the entire network see them. In addition to University of Texas, Arlington, we have partnerships with over 400 plus colleges and universities. I think that number is now north of 450 across the US. One of the things we're also really proud of is over 80% of the micro interns selected come from underrepresented populations. So really seeing this create equitable pathways. And as I said, since we're not replacing Simplicity or Handshake or any of the other things, you have access to over 11 million college students and recent grads across the US. Once the projects are posted, here's what the student sees. They see the content creation example that you can see. Here's the description of the project. We're looking for someone to draft a 1,200 to 1,600 word article, the start date and the due date. So maybe I'm a student, I wasn't thinking about a role at Wayne Enterprises. I thought they only worked with Batman. Well, here's an interesting project for me to learn about that company in that space. I might look at it and say, do you know what? It's the middle of finals week. I don't have time. Okay, so don't apply. Or they look at it and say, do you know what? Like I wasn't thinking about it, but I have 15 hours over the next couple of weeks. My course load isn't that heavy. Great, I'm going to apply. They also see if it's remote or on site. They also see how much they're paid. Every micro internship on Parker Dewey is paid. We believe that, again, that drives equitable pathways. Number of other things, happy to answer more questions about that offline. When a student sees the payment amount, they see the net amount they will get. So to be crystal clear, Parker Dewey does take 10% off the top of every project. So in this example you see, the company Wayne Enterprises posted it at 300. The student sees it at 270. The reason we take 10%, and that is the only fee, is it covers the cost of having the student on our books. As I said, the payroll, the accounting, all of that stuff. What we're also able to do is highlight your company and your project to those specific schools. So here's a great way of showing students at University of Arlington your organization. You can see the example for Purdue. As we're launching this with University of Texas Arlington, we will continue to have more of those companies featured, again, driving that engagement in a way it's difficult to get from the normal recruiting processes, difficult from the emails you're sending. because again, students are hungry for those projects. Once the projects are posted, students apply and you select who you want. You will see where the students go to school. You can click through and see additional details, resume, LinkedIn. One of the nice things about the platform is every project has at least one question. Why should we pick you? Now you can ask second, third, fourth questions. How would you approach this? Why does it interest you? Whatever. Those short questions we found actually tell you more about a candidate than a resume. Because again, we've all had people with amazing resumes that seem great on paper, and then you get to the interview and you realize it's not the right fit. Or even worse, they start the role. Again, they interview really well and they start the role and you realize the attention to details not there, or the problem solving or the communication. These short answer questions really tease it out. So someone like Legend had a really, really thoughtful answer. Let's give him a shot. Versus the student who wrote, I go to Harvard and have some free time. Or the student who writes an answer that's riddled with typos. Again, the students control what you see. And what that means is they're showcasing those skills that are so difficult to assess: communication, problem solving, attention to detail, etc. So you see the students, if you're interested in one, you simply click the button and say approve the applicant for the project. You can also send Legend a message. Hey, can we hop on a quick Zoom call, or can you email me a writing sample? But the vast majority of organizations and professionals will simply just pick the student. Again, this is a project that's going to take someone 10 hours to do. I don't want to spend an hour interviewing. Like, let's give Legend a shot. And because it's a short-term project, because I'm not quote unquote on the hook for the next 10 weeks, if Legend is not amazing, no big deal. What we found though is over 98% of the micro interns actually exceed expectations. They do a great job. So once you select a student, again, engage how you want. You can schedule a Zoom call, you can send an email, you can hop on the phone, whatever is easiest. Parker Dewey gets out of the way. That said, we have an entire client success team that's there to support you. We can answer questions, help however we can. As we said, we know these go really well. The students are inherently motivated to exceed expectations, which is why in over 98% of the time, sort of they exceed the expectations. And again, access to a ton of resources. And when the project's done, again, you always have the opportunity to hire at will. There's no expectation of it. So if a student does a micro internship and it doesn't lead to a summer internship or a full-time role, no one feels bad. It's just an opportunity to get some work experience, and the student's excited and your busy professional has gotten some work done. But maybe there is something. Maybe you weren't planning on hiring an intern, but Legend was amazing. Well, here's a way to put him into the pipeline should you have that need, or put him into the pipeline for a future intern role. Maybe it's a sophomore and you're trying to introduce your brand or company. Again, you're building that relationship with someone and building that pipeline. Some of the common FAQs, and again, we'll send these around afterwards. You define the project. Again, you can use the templates or you can set them up from scratch. We, again, have a client success team that can answer questions, or if you have custom project requests or anything else. We also have some tools that if we see something that looks a little bit off, we will follow up with you directly and make suggestions. You set the price for each project. It's a fixed fee. And part of the reason we do that is, one, we want to remove any conflict of interest. So we don't want you saying, I think it's going to take you 10 hours and we'll pay $200, and the student comes back and says it took me 20. You say, well, it shouldn't have taken you 20. That's not good. We don't want to pay $400. We were going to pay 20 an hour. Or the student gets it done. Maybe they find some really creative way of getting it done even faster, and the work's amazing. Again, the student is compensated for that. And we've actually seen that happen. The companies are like, yeah, you know what? He got done in 5 hours, still happy to pay the $200. And you know what? That student showed us a way of getting something done more efficiently that's going to save us a whole bunch of time down the road. The other reason it's fixed fee is we want to remove the conflict of interest associated with the bidding process. We don't want you worried about, should I take the high bidder or the low bidder? Or again, we're trying to create an equitable platform that's easy as possible. As I said, they're not your employees, interns, or contractors, no W-2, no 1099, no formal relationship. You select the micro interns you want. So what a great way of, again, engaging students who go to the University of Texas at Arlington. And then all of the students are under NDA. We are very belts and suspenders. If you have a separate NDA, you want them to sign, awesome, feel free. But again, they're all covered, and under 6 years of doing this, there've been no issues. What we see is real sustainable impact. And that's really important. Again, that goes back to why I founded the organization 6 years ago. We see this leading to better outcomes for students and companies alike. For students who may have gotten missed because their GPA wasn't over some threshold, or a company doesn't recruit at their school, this provides that equitable access. For those companies that may not have the brand recognition of a Pepsi or a Microsoft, here's a great way to engage those amazing students who would be great fits, or may not realize the opportunities to work with less well-known or smaller businesses, or even for those big companies. Here's a way to overcome those preconceived biases or notions that students may have based upon your consumer brand, to my Pepsi example before. So what now? Well, post a project, post a Mav Micro today. Again, we have some examples on here. Think about all of the we shoulds or I shouldn'ts you have on your own plate. Think about other members of your team, whether it's in your department or other departments, or your friends or colleagues. What a great opportunity to get some of that on-demand support while supporting the University of Texas Arlington students. And I saw a comment in the chat, David, sorry if I said the wrong A. I assume I did from your comment. My apologies if I got something wrong. That's what happens when
sometimes people get worked up over that sort of thing.
They should.
Clarification.
This is what happens when I'm still working on my first cup of coffee for the day. So my apologies for that.
Oh, that's no problem. I'm from Kentucky. Sometimes, takes me a minute.
You're from, I see, I went to school in Indiana. We may have an issue. No, I'm kidding. With that, I mean, that concludes the conversation. I know Kristen was active in the chat. And again, my apologies again for saying the wrong Texas A city. It was unintentional. So apologies. Kristen, any questions that we did not answer?
I think there were a lot of questions around custom projects and kind of how that website that's on the screen right now works. Basically, we designed that to make things easy so that if you were to click on that particular page, just like Jeffrey's showing you, that will have a project description pre-populated, and you can edit any of it, but it's you can see here, it has a description, the estimated number of hours, the typical costs that we see, all of that predefined for you. You can then choose to make your project just exclusive to UTA students if you'd like. You could make it exclusive to schools across the state. Again, totally up to you. And as Jeffrey illustrated, even if you choose to make it open to everybody, no problem. You can always filter to just find the UTA students as you see fit. So a lot of different options available there, but you can always start from scratch and edit anything that you see fit. I think one other question. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
No, I was going to say, these are just a few of the examples. And since I have taken us off the slide deck, again, we have these. We tried to have a few of the most common on there, but you can see there is an entire project library behind it. And this is still just a small subset. So if you are a human resources professional and you need help updating job descriptions, again, it all works exactly the same, where maybe you don't have 10 positions, you have 5. Maybe you don't want them to start on the 9th, you actually need them to start tomorrow and you need it by next Tuesday. All of these things you can quickly edit and refine. Again, the goal is to make this easier for you, not add to a workload. We saw, is the cost set amount for any job, or do we set the price or hourly rate? We ask you to estimate the hours. And again, for those templates, we have them estimated, and then you pick a price. The reason we ask you to estimate the hours is twofold. One, we think it's important for the student to understand. So if this is a project that you think is going to take 50 hours and it's due next week and it's the middle of finals week, yeah, that's probably pretty good for the student to know that he or she probably shouldn't apply. But the other reason is setting the price. So a lot of companies will say, do you know what? I don't know if it's going to take 13 hours or 15 hours or 17. I think it'll take about 15. And we normally pay our interns $20 an hour, so I'll set it at $300. Now, if you went in and set it at $30, you would get this big red notification that doesn't seem fair. But if you set 300, or you might set it at 250, okay, that seems like a fair price. We also behind the scenes are monitoring this. So again, if you still chose to post that 15-hour project and you were going to pay $50, you would be getting a contact from us letting us know that, hey, that doesn't really seem like a fair price. We would suggest increasing it. I will say we have had companies say, do you know what, we normally don't pay our interns anything, so they're lucky to get $50. And our response is, we're probably not the right platform for you. Again, we don't mean that in a judgmental way. Just back to our mission, we believe students should be paid and paid fairly for their work. It's one of the other ways also we drive equity in the process.
The only other question, that comes up just quite a bit is around just the level of academic rigor, if you will, for some of the projects. So would it be appropriate, for instance, for a student who is in their first or second year, or for a student who maybe is in graduate school, just kind of what's the typical student profile for those doing these?
Yeah, when I launched the organization 6 years ago, I wasn't sure. And I thought it was going to be primarily juniors and seniors. However, what we've seen over the past 6 years is it really is everyone, ranging from freshmen all the way through graduate students, PhD students, folks who may have graduated 1, 2, 3 years ago. Once you get beyond that, once it's someone with 5 or 10 years of professional experience, it's just not the right fit. And we're very transparent. They're probably not all that interested in doing these things. But really any year in college. Or graduate school. And what we found is every project is different. Again, not all of them are glamorous. We are going to a conference. We have a list of the 100 participants, and we need you to track down these 10 pieces of information for each. That's something a freshman could do or a senior could do. And by the way, while it's not glamorous, what you find is that when the student does that project, one, it's a great way for you to see their attention to detail and for them to understand the importance of attention to detail, but it also highlights some of those other key things. So for the freshman or sophomore that's being asked to crunch a conference list for a private equity firm, they can wonder, well, why is this firm asking me to do it? What information is important? Are there other insights I can share that would be valuable? And then we obviously see more complicated projects. We're providing you with a massive data set and want you to use that data set to create analytics tied to X, Y, and Z and provide a summary of what those are. Do you know what? A freshman probably doesn't have the skills to do it, though we're not going to judge, but that's a great project maybe for a junior, senior grad student. Again, so it really is that breadth. What we're trying to do, though, is encourage that exploration. So one of the things on the platform is we don't allow students to filter the project opportunities by industry or by company name or by department, because we want the student that might be a finance major who thinks he or she wants to work at an investment bank to see a really interesting strategy project for a technology company in Arlington, Texas. Well, that looks interesting. Let me apply. Again, it encourages that exploration, which we think is just so important. I know we're at the bottom of the hour. As I said, Kristen shared the deck in here. You have an access to this link. All that said, if you have any other questions along the way, if there's anything else we can answer or share, please don't be bashful. My direct email is just Jeffrey@ParkerDewey, or you can use the form at the top of here and ask questions. We have an entire client success team that wants to make this a great experience for both you and the students. And again, really appreciate all of the support, both from the participants on the call and the entire University of Texas Arlington team. And again, sorry again about getting the name wrong along the way. But this is truly just a complete pleasure. So thank you so much. With that, this concludes the webinar.